There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. UConn was disrespected by the selection committee.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all of your support. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the UConn women's and men's basketball programs, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet, and it wins. And that brings me to the topic of the day. Before we bring Bella Tamano in here from Hoops Capital of the World, I was really frustrated at the selection committee because what this does is it kind of gives, and I know this isn't the end of the world, UConn's a 1 or a 2 seed, but the larger issue is why are they the 2 seed? And why there's arguments all over the board. South Carolina had an argument to be the number 1 overall seed. And then Dorita Dawkins came on the selection show and said, well, one of the criteria was head-to-head matchups with UCLA. Okay, let's take that into consideration. So the head-to-head matchup between South Carolina and UConn, because she used that as an example, like tough losses. She's like competitive losses. They had a 29-point loss to UConn. Cool. Did you use that into the equation when UConn was a 2 seed and South Carolina was a 1? So it's a moving goalpost. They use criteria when it matters, like when it's convenient for their argument, and then they take it away for when it's like, well, South Carolina had the most quad 1 wins. Okay, but how was their head-to-head matchup with the only time they played UConn? That's my biggest gripe with this, and I had this conversation with T. Baker last Friday. Is Notre Dame and North Carolina and UConn were in the exact same scenario, and Notre Dame got a 1 seed and Notre Dame got a 2 seed, and Notre Dame smacked UConn by double digits in their home court without AZ Fudd. With AZ Fudd, who cares? It's a head-to-head win. That's my problem with it. We're going to bring in Bella. Let's get her thoughts and talk about it. Bella, do you think UConn got disrespected?
Absolutely. I think that coming into the last couple weeks, really, UConn was peaking at the right time. They were honestly playing their best basketball this season while other teams weren't. And to put UConn as a 2 seed and give some other teams ones that I honestly didn't think were super deserving, it's a slap in the face. And I also think that I thought that maybe they would at least take into consideration some history in the tournament, which sometimes I feel like they do. Sometimes, they'll give some teams the nod just based off of, Geno being their coach, or, they're no stranger to the NCAA tournament. And unfortunately they didn't. And I just think that, like you said, they use the certain head-to-head matchups. They use certain criteria when it benefits them. And that's the thing. It's just a useless system if that's how it's going to go. I think that, at the end of the day, for me, I think that UConn deserves a 1 seed. Like that's the thing. They did. I talked to everybody who I talked to. Everybody on campus said, that wasn't super close. Like, was following maybe the men's a little bit more and just kind of tuning into the women's. Like, how is UConn getting a 2 seed? Like they were baffled.
Yeah.
And I think we are too.
As they should. And like, I think also too, like, if you take a look at just like UCLA is the number 1 overall seed, okay, according to the committee, number 1 overall seed. Now, did they have a phenomenal year? Yes, they started off 23-0. Then they play USC. USC beats them by 11. So remember, head-to-head matchups are important. That's what Dorita Dawkins said in her interview, right? So let me ask you a question. Do you know, and if you don't know this, it's okay. They played USC 3 times. How many times did they lose to USC?
Twice.
Right. So who won the head-to-head matchup?
USC.
So who should be the number 1 overall seed?
USC. Exactly. You're right. You're 1,000% right.
I just don't understand. It's like I'm a, you know, there's a quote from a movie in like from like 95, I think, or 94 even. So forgive me, but and I'm all talking a bunch, so like I'm nasally and I'm trying not to blow snots on on our recording. But like my biggest issue is when something doesn't make sense. There's a quote from a movie called "Explain to Me Like I'm a 5-Year-Old." It's Denzel Washington from Philadelphia. He's a lawyer. He's like, explain this to me like I'm a like a toddler, right? And when you can't come up with a simple explanation, it just bothers me that there's so much riding on this. Do you know how much money is at stake for different companies, for schools that are invested in this, for the teams that have really put in a ton of effort to make sure that they've done everything they need to do from a scheduling standpoint. Like if you look at UConn, they play multiple out of conference games in conference during conference season
Mhm.
to make sure that their percentages, their net ranking is high. They didn't coast. They played tough teams. They played tough teams without their full complement of team, and they were the number one team in the net. The net is the ranking system that helps guide the selection committee on who should be where they're seated. So that to me is the biggest issue that I have with this seating system is they're not listening to the metrics, and two, they're using the bigger conferences are squashing the littler conferences.
Yeah.
Then SEC are pushing out other conferences. We might as well just have a power two, and then everyone else just kind of gets whatever they get.
Right. Now the other thing too is like money is even more important now with the NIL and what you know money teams are making off of tournaments like this because I think this is especially for women's basketball, this is where the biggest bucks
Oh
are
yeah.
made. I also am frustrated too because like a lot of people, I think I'm always a firm believer of it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And let's be real, UConn did not have a great start to the season. They got they lost pretty it was a pretty bad loss to Notre Dame and a very tough loss to USC. But at the end of the day, that was without their, like you said, that was without their full, without AZ Fudd, without Aubrey Griffin. And they won when it mattered, and to still not be rewarded for that, and to take that risk, like you said, and play non-conference games during a time where it is so pivotal and to dominate South Carolina and not even be rewarded is honestly again a slap in the face, and there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, and honestly, and I'll do the devil's advocate part of it too. Is like so because the devil's advocate is, if you're listening to this, is, well, if they would have just beat Tennessee, if they would have just beaten one of the games against USC or Notre Dame, then those are kind of the business that you can handle on your own. This is true, but when you have multiple opportunities in the SEC, when you have multiple opportunities in the Big Ten, you can have a hiccup. You could lose twice to the same team like UCLA did,
Yeah.
and still be rewarded with a 1 seed. So UConn doesn't have that luxury. They don't have that luxury in the Big East, and they don't have that luxury when they play their random game in February against Tennessee, which Tennessee is that was Tennessee's Super Bowl. Like, to be completely fair,
Yeah.
that like I know UConn should focus on every game like it's their last, and but human nature always creeps in, and I'm sure that the part of the team was just like, listen, we got South Carolina coming up. This Tennessee game is kind of like meh, and they probably didn't prepare the way they should. That's on them. So that's probably why they're a 2 seed, if you're going to look at the logical aspect of this. But the frustrating part is when you beat that South Carolina team that literally the USA Today wrote an article that Dawn Staley was like, how did we not get the number 1 overall seed? So if she's pissed off about how they didn't get the number 1 overall seed, and we're upset how we didn't even get to the 4th 1 seed after being 3 in the AP and number 1 in the net, I just have an issue with it. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, is this system broken? I'm going to show a couple of ads for our sponsors here, and we're going to come back with Bella Tamata of Hoops Capital of the World, and of course, Locked On UConn after the break. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences, every week you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, every Factor offer wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-to-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried the Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege, $50 off, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code S-H-5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn. Mark Sonetto here with Bellattamano of Hoops Capital of the World. You just wrote a great piece on the Substack. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so I talked, obviously we heard in the 60 Minutes that Dan Hurley said that 50% of, his roster had an idea of where they're going to go next year. They're entering the transfer portal. And so I, I predicted who I thought was going to go. And right now I have Jaden Ross, Yusuf Sangare, and Ahmad Noel that I predicted. So if you guys want to go check it out and kind of read the ins and outs of why and why they're transferring, definitely go check that out on Substack, the Hoops Capital of the World.
Awesome, appreciate it. Definitely go check that out. What I was going to say is like, okay, so we were talking about this, about how this theme of UConn being disrespected, and it's become kind of like a really it's been like a pain in the ass, because it could be completely blunt, because this is a team that is going for their 12th national championship. You have the all-time winningest coach. It's not like this is the Little Sisters of the Poor. We have Paige Beckers, we have AZ Fudd, Sarah Strong. Like it's kind of phenomenal that the team that essentially has fed the NCAA stars and titles and one shining moments after another is literally having to say, hey, what about us? And it's frustrating. And for those of you who don't know how the system works, and I'm not saying this because I'm like a conspiracy theorist or like whatever when it comes to these the selection committee, bracketology is broken. And how we fix it is pretty simple. I know personally at least 3 people who dedicate their spare time into doing these bracketologies, and they do it in a very fair and I'm going to say partisan, if you will, but like they don't favor a team. Maybe they went to like a school that doesn't play basketball. It doesn't matter. The whole idea is, on both the men's and women's side, who selects these teams are not the people that you think they are. It's not the Joe Lunardis of the world that you see on ESPN talking. It's not, your favorite bracketologist that you can just name up, Jerry Palm, like all these people that are on different CBS sites. Why do you think that we have athletic directors and essentially part-time committee members deciding the fate of these teams?
There is no really logical answer to explain that, Mark. I think we like you said, I think a lot of people are kind of like swindled when they hear that it's athletic directors selecting these teams. For me, I think like bias. Like, what if they don't get along with a certain AD at a certain school,
Mhm.
and kind of give them the short end of the stick? I don't know. I think some people probably, I'm sure some people have some issues with Geno himself and probably don't get along with him. What if that comes into factor? And like we say, a lot of this is speculative, but even if te- a small percentage of it is true, it's not fair and it's not right. And I just think that I just don't understand why, especially now with they have so much technology that can really like say,
Mhm.
okay, this team's even down to just like their shooting percentage. This team shoots better in this certain scenario, so they should, be above this school. Like, I just don't understand why it's coming down to really um just I think when you think about ADs, it's more so opinion and less facts.
Yeah, I mean, like this is the for I don't have the list. The women's selection committee list is a lot harder to find online, and that's fine. If someone has it, cool, send it to me. Um, I know that Dorita Dawkins is the chairman of it, and so she is the athletic director for Arkansas. And so on the men's side, it's Bubba Cunningham. That's a name that's been around for a long time. He's the North Carolina AD. So I just would love to hear the rationale. Could you imagine think about this? David Benedict is our athletic director. Shout out AD. He is their ADDB. He's the man. He's been on our show before. Phenomenal athletic director. I want David Benedict nowhere near a selection committee. And it's not because he's not capable or he's not smart. It's because he doesn't belong on it. He doesn't
Yeah.
belong on it. Notice Bubba Cunningham, notice Dorita Dawkins. And here's why. Because even though Bubba Cunningham supposedly was out of the room when North Carolina was one of the last four teams picked, uh, so what? There's still you still have to talk to Bubba after that. When you don't pick North Carolina and that's his school, and that costs his coach an NCAA tournament bid, it costs his players like an RJ Davis, who's one of the all-time leading scorers in ACC history. That kind of stuff matters to people in relationships, and we're people at the heart of it. And for the most part, people like to please other people. So I always want to make sure that Bella's okay. I'm not gonna we don't just come on here and go, hey, how you doing? What's up? You ready to do a show? There's a relationship that's been created. So I want to make sure you're good. You want to make sure I'm good. So if we're in a committee together, you better damn well sure I'm going to want to make you feel good about what we're doing here. And
Mhm.
so for Dorita Dawkins to sit here and talk about its head-to-head competition and all this other stuff, no, it's not. It's about whose conferences get the most. It's the Big Ten, SEC dominating the bids, especially so on the men's side, but on the women's side too.
Mhm.
It just that's the part that's broken. And it's not getting any better because the selection committee on the men's side, and I'm sure the women have a similar map system. Next year, it's the Minnesota athletic director. The year after that, it's the Samford athletic director. The year after that, it's Temple. The year after that, it's Manhattan athletic director, and the year after that, it's Oklahoma State. So there's no end in sight, and that's the frustrating part.
Yeah. And I also think that if you look at an AD's job description, I just don't see where that like fits. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't there's just really no rhyme or reason for that. And let me ask you this, Mark, though. Do you think now, like I said, I kind of alluded to it with technology, do you think that technology should have more of an impact because it can really get these finite stats that um sometimes I know sometimes you just have that gut feeling and sometimes you think, okay, this team just feels like they're peaking at that right time. But do you think technology should have more of an impact on that selection?
Yeah, I actually think it does. I actually think they do because I've talked to bracketologists who do this, and the crazy thing is think about it this way: the people who project these brackets have to ask these non bracket people how they're going about their system.
Mhm.
When the reality is, you need to put people that actually can project these brackets almost to a science into those rooms versus them asking questions afterwards. Oh, why did you go here? Why did you go there? Because that makes more sense. You don't have the doctor on the outside of the surgery room. You know what I mean? Like if I have to get my appendix out, I don't want I want the doctor to do. I don't want to be like, oh, Belly, you read a book about how to take out an appendix. Relay the information to the doctor if you don't mind, and then and then you do the surgery because you read about it. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like I know that there are people who can do things on their own. I'm not one of them. I'm not a DIYer. Like if my car broke down, I'm going to a mechanic. Okay.
100%.
If I want to know something about brackets, I'm going to Joe Lenardi. I'm going to my guy Rocco Miller. I'm going to Jerry Palm. I'm going to Mike DeCourcy. Like these are people that do this for a living. I'm not going to Bubba Cunningham or Dorita Dawkins to find out why they did something. They did it because they have a relationship with another team. And it's not even accusatory. They're probably great people. Like there's no shortage of great people who make decisions based off how they feel about something versus looking at the data. So yes, to your point, very long-winded way of saying, I think they do that. But why are we even giving these people who have nothing to do with how to create a bracket these sheets of their BPI and the advanced analytics of Ken Palm or Bart Torvak or any of this, all these different things that you could use? It makes no sense. It's one extra step that we don't need to take.
I agree. I definitely agree. We'll see. I mean, I think definitely things need to change. And I think, especially on the women's side, I think as it grows and as it gets bigger and people recognize, more and more, the more they just need more and more people to recognize, I think this fact and really understand that, teams are getting the short end of the stick and things need to change. And I think once some more pushback comes from the right people, hopefully things can change.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Geno and Dawn and some of the bigger coaches, because it's not even about, pardon me, it's not even about us anymore. It's about it's the integrity of the entire bracket. So if you're leaving out teams that should be in and you're messing with seeding based off of, what conference you played in, well, you put in a tougher conference. It's like, well, I think we're overvaluing the conference, because all year long on college game days in ESPN all year, who's UConn's corporate sponsor? It's Fox. Fox doesn't have a college game day, so ESPN does, and ESPN's corporate sponsors or their conference sponsor with SEC. So you have and Big Ten. So and the Big Ten has CBS. Like, so it's very convoluted, and it ends up being a very slippery slope of okay, so this year it's a 2 seed. What about in 2 years from now? Are we a 4 seed because the Big East is really bad?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, so that's the issue, is like you're allowing to, when people go, well, it doesn't matter 1 or 2 seed. You're right. But it's pretty soon that 2 seed is going to be a 4 seed, and you're going to be like, wait a minute, didn't we go 34-2 this year? Listen, we can laugh about it, but it's the truth. Like that will end up happening, because UConn women right now are the Gonzaga of the men's side that ends up going 30-1 every year. And they play in the WCC, and nobody cares about it because it's on the West Coast, and it's also not the best conference. And they have usually one decent team that plays against them, and that's what this Big East is turning into, and that's what Creighton is. So, yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox, and we're gonna get to the next break. And the third segment of the program is, will this fuel the fire? Because Geno didn't exactly seem like he was super excited about what's going down in this bracket. So we're gonna talk about that coming up after the break.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And then when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can place $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
And we're back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Zanetto here. And I have my co-host, as usual, on Mondays and Wednesdays, Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World. Go check out her piece on the top 3 transfer portals, potentials for the UConn men on the Hoops Capital of the World Substack. Support that Substack there. There's a lot of great contributors, including myself and some others that are writing for it. All right. So this is going to fuel their fire, all this consternation about where they're going, because the one thing we didn't talk about is it's a pain in the ass. Like you're in stores now, but if you win, you're going all the way across the country.
I think it'll absolutely fuel their fire. You saw all the pushback they got when they lost against Tennessee, and then they went out and had a statement win against South Carolina. I think everyone, like Paige Beckers, is always, in my opinion, she's thrived when, people bet against her. And I think same thing with Geno. UConn has always been at the top of women's basketball. And like we said, it's pure disrespect. And I think I have confidence in them that they're going to show the world that they should have been a 1 seed. And I do think, this is it's an early prediction, not even an early prediction, just it's a bold one, but I think UConn wins the whole thing. I really do. I think this is their year. And I think after the disrespect from the committee, I think that's exactly what they need to go out there and just the extra little fire that they need to win.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. The frustrating thing, I guess, is it shouldn't have to be this way where you're like, you know what, let's show them. But you know what, I'll take it because and to be honest with you, who's their first round opponent? Do we have a beat on that? I can get it. I can pull it up here fast. But
Arkansas,
UConn women,
Arkansas State.
Yeah, I feel bad for Arkansas State and whoever else they play in the second round, because they're going to take the brunt of this. And maybe this is just sports talk radio. Where we're more frustrated than they are. But just listening to Geno talk about how this kind of stuff needs to be fixed sooner than later doesn't feel that way to me. I don't feel like I'm being overly dramatic about it. And I think part of it is because I can see where this would go. I hate to go back to the men's side, but because there's more parity in the between the 3 and the 8 seed. And what I mean by this is it's the same issue on both sides. If the metrics say that the 5 seeds are actually worse off than the 8 seeds, then we have an issue with how we make selections. And so, and you can find those situations on the women's side from the 2s to the 3s, maybe even to the 4 seeds. So it's really just about UConn needs to go out there and take care of business. There's really nothing else to say. Arkansas State is not going to be a good team for them to worry about. It's really just about taking care of business. What do you see from them in terms of if they're going into this game? Do you think that this team is going to, essentially, take this as not only just a slight, but it's kind of different teams have rallying cries, over the years. I don't even know what this would be called. Like, what would you call this as a rallying cry? Is it just more about disrespect, or is it just about, they don't see us as equals? Like, what is it?
I think they look at it as the equals part. I think that because they haven't won in a while, it's almost like forgotten. Like kind of like, do you realize that we paved the way for every single team, and now all of a sudden, like, where did that respect go? I think it's
Right.
like I think that's what it is to me. I think it's like, especially for Geno, who has been here since day one, he's probably thinking to himself, like, what happened to, the mutual kind of agreement that we got you to where this league is now. And again, I think, respect can only go so far. If UConn had lost like 10 games this season and they were trying to, maybe say, oh, we should have been in a 2 seed or something like that, or a 1 seed, obviously that's different. But with what UConn did this year, I think, yeah, I think it's just shocking that they didn't take into consideration, just the program that they are and the program that they've always been.
In the last thing I'll say, and then we'll close out the show, is like, I also, like, they're the number one team in the net. Like, it's so silly that that the number one team in the metric that informs the selection committee on who to pick as 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, etc. You wouldn't have that team be a 1 seed. Like, that makes, it goes back to explaining to me like I'm a 5-year-old again.
Yeah.
You can't.
No. All I'll say is I feel good about this. Everyone I've talked to, everybody on campus, feels good about this, and is confident that, they might not be so confident on the men's side, as they've been the past 2 years, but I
Right.
think for the women's in the past 5 years, this is, I would say, the most confident, we've been, and I feel good about it. I think everyone in Connecticut feels good about it, and I think everybody else should be on watch, because this is exactly, you don't want to give anybody a reason to go on a little bit of a revenge tour, and I think this is going to be the revenge tour for UConn, and I'll be in Spokane, and I'll be with them for as long as they are. I'll be broadcasting on WHUS 91.7. So for everyone in Connecticut, you can get
There
it
you
there.
go.
Little plug there, or on WHUS.com if you want to get the live stream. And I think the main points of my broadcast are they got something to prove, to the whole country, and I think they're going to do it. I really do.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm very excited for you to be going out to Spokane. Enjoy the first couple games in stores in the friendly confines, and then then it's Road Warriors time,
Let's do it.
and the revenge tour begins. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn for Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World and Locked On UConn. I am Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and remember, it's not about how you get it done; it's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day, and that's the goal of the Huskies. So get locked in. Go Huskies.